So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the first Sunday of the new year, 2022. And we have much to look forward to, and we'll be talking about that today. I'd like us to begin by calling in the ancestors, and this is something that we used to do some time ago, where we have this ritual every Sunday, but we used to do it in this way that I will share today. And it requires us to stand briefly, if you're up for it, and to place your hands on your heart, and then we will raise our hand to receive the ancestors into our sacred space and into our being, and to bring, reminding us that we have ancestors, and that includes all of our teachers, friends, who have made it possible for us to flourish now. So we'll do this together, and I'll be away from the microphone so I won't speak. We'll do it together. It's a body prayer. Thank you. So I have an opening prayer today, and this is a prayer for the world. Beloved one, living light, spirit of all that is, thank you for welcoming us to this sacred circle, comprised of every hue of the spectrum of the human community. Be with us now as we lean in to hear your call. Stay close as we stand up to speak your message of unconditional love. Divine Mother, embodiment of mercy and compassion, enfold us in your protective cloak as we dare to take in the pain of the world. Give us the courage and strength to drop our preconceptions and step into the field of global strife, armed with the flaming arrow of unconditional love. Sacred friend, hidden behind the eyes of the broken, reveal yourself. Let us behold the beauty of your face in all beings, everywhere, always. Where once we perceived only the impossible, blinded by our desire for circumstances, people, and our own sweet selves to be different, let us rest now in what is alert to your power to astonish us. With the global awakening of unconditional love. Holy One, we carry legacy of our ancestors in the marrow of our own souls. We are all reluctant prophets. We must be called and called again and yet again. We turn and turn away. We yield and bow and rise until at last, clasped by the ferocious wings of your angels, we declare, Hineni, I am here. Make of me a vessel of your divine will, the will of unconditional love. Great Spirit, true self and no self, fill the hearts of our leaders with humility and holy awe. Embolden them not to turn away from the other, but to lay down their weapons and take the adversary in their arms. Infuse them with the fire that melts swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. Show them the secret passage from hopeless conflict, home to unconditional love. Father, Mother, God, may the children of Abraham and Sarah at last fall silent in the face of your radiance. May our hearts soar in remembrance. May our knees bend and our bodies bow down, and the spirits rejoice, overflowing with this unceasing prayer, resounding and cleansing and blessing all the land. There is nothing but you, nothing but God, nothing. Amen.
We would like to acknowledge that our beautiful interfaith community sanctuary church lies upon what was once forest and creek, unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Duwamish, the first people of Seattle. We honor with gratitude both this land and the ancient and current Duwamish tribe. May we continue to remember this legacy and be worthy stewards.
And now I've been given the honor to present an offering to the Divine Feminine. And I always appreciate this opportunity, because for me, it's not just simply a chance to pay tribute. It is also a call to me to look within, and a call for all of us to look within, to find those qualities that we attribute to the Divine Feminine: compassion, cooperation, empathy, acceptance, justice, forgiveness, kindness, beauty, truth, wisdom. If we take time to pause and to look inward and reflect on these qualities of the Divine Feminine, we find that we can recognize them. We can recognize them in ourselves and feel them. We can touch them. Or we can then begin to look for ways to increasingly integrate them into our relationships and activities. And so I offer this brief passage from the Wisdom of Solomon that speaks of the Divine Feminine as wisdom. Wisdom that is there for all who choose to reach out for her. Wisdom is radiant and unfading, and she is easily discerned by those who love her, and is found by those who seek her. She hastens to make herself known to those who desire her. He who rises early to seek her will have no difficulty, for he will find her sitting at his gates. To fix one's thoughts on her is perfect understanding, and he who is vigilant on her account will soon be free from care, because she goes about seeking those worthy of her, and she graciously appears to them in their paths and meets them in every thought. Thank you.
Oops. My dear friends, what a joy it is to be here in the sanctuary. My first, I think you call it streaming experience at ICS. So let us start with some chants. And we have some wonderful selected chanters present here today. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu twice softly. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Twice aloud. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. And simply be open to the glow of presence. Let's do a Hindu chant. Jai Jai Ma, 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 Jai Jai Ma. So, my dear friends, a few words about ICS, about our work, and the beauty of our mission. I was thinking about 15 years ago, I was in Tennessee, and I talked briefly about, in those days, Interfaith Community Church. And after my talk was over, this minister came over and said, you know, Jamal, I belong to this, I think it was Presbyterian denomination, and I was asked to go to Africa. I was a young man, and I've spent 35 years in Africa, and I was sent because at that time there were reports of the Muslims in that particular city converting the natives to become Muslims. And I was sent there with a team to counter that and to convert them to Christianity. And what he wanted to say was, I realize I've spent 35 years doing this work of countering conspiracy, talking negatively about the other. And I realized serving the kingdom of Caesar, and how I wished I'd spent most of my time serving the kingdom of God. So he said, you know, if what you say is true, that you're able to bring people of different religions together and to worship together and learn from one another and help one another become more Christ-like, you know, Allah-like or Elohim-like. He says, this is fantastic if it's true, but you must let other people know about it. I want to know how you do it, because for me it's impossible. Okay, that's one incident which is seared in my memory. How do you do it and let others know about it? I remember a conference I was in Japan, and again this lady came and told me, really? You're really able to get everybody from different religions and do a worship service, learn from one another, help one another, and even do programs of social justice, Earthcare together? I said, yes. Then she said, you know who I am? I'm a publicist, and I really advise you write about this, You make small videos about this. And that's where I got the idea that I must do small videos, short videos, and to let other people know about what it is we're doing. And I realized it's not about, and this lady really explained to me, it's not about you. It's about inspiring others, giving ideas, giving insights, because there's a hunger for it. People want, from different religions, different cultures, different races, different political views, to get together. And if you're able to do this with religious people, that's an incredible accomplishment. So I want to emphasize that what we are doing is truly, in a very humble, small way, a model. And there is so much of collective wisdom among the ministers, among the congregation. We need to talk about it. We need to write about it. We need to make little videos about it. And we need to continue this work of that which is critical, which is missing in the institution of religions, as it is becoming, I don't want to say corrupted, but going astray. And the main work is really to help one another become more Christ-like, Buddha-like, Allah-like, Elohim-like, Krishna-like, to go beyond our ego, to open up our hearts, to be inclusive. That's one half of our work. And the other half of the work is to sincerely engage in action, in service to others, to serve God's creation. And I want to say there's a great hunger for it. This was 10, 15 years ago, I was told this. Today, the hunger is even more deep, profound. I don't know if you know, there was a Pew or national polling that found that even in the last 5 or 6 years, in America, a significant people of Christians have turned away from the religion, who are no longer attending houses of worship, Christian houses of worship. Why? Because they have noticed that some of these Christian clerics are misusing, abusing the scriptures for political power, to capture the White House. This has not gone unnoticed. This has really disturbed a large number of people. How they have used this, focused on the ends to justify the means. And this is not acceptable, to twist and manipulate those beautiful Christian principles and moral values. It is the same in other religions. In Islam, we know that some Islamic clerics have twisted, manipulated, fabricated Quranic verses to justify violence and patriarchy. How amazing that Buddhist monks in Myanmar have incited people to kill Muslim Rohingyas. There are 1 million Muslim Rohingya refugees that have fled this oppression, incited by, encouraged by Buddhist monks, a stain on the institution of Buddhism. And you might not know that there is a growing movement in India among Hindu priests, Hindu gurus and swamis. Most recently, there were a number of huge gatherings where they openly said it is okay for us to kill Muslims and also Christians, so that Hinduism flourishes. So this is in every institution of religion, and there is a hunger among people who are seeing this, who are really becoming very dejected, disappointed, and wondering what is the way out to overcome this animosity, adversarial attitude, this polarization among religions. And I want to say that we at the Interfaith Community Sanctuary, we are offering, as I say, in a very humble, innocent way, small way, a model some hope. And by the way, our work has also not gone unnoticed, even though we have not advocated at all. You might recall that I think a couple of years ago, was it, we won the global award and a cash prize, becoming second in the global competition for the work of what is called love of God, love of the good, love of neighbor, a program sponsored by the United Nations and particularly spearheaded by King Abdullah of Jordan. And most recently, we've been getting inquiries from BBC, BBC World Service, by some national magazines about the work we're doing. How do you do it? So once again, I encourage all of you and all of us to really join together and talk about this, deepen this. I quickly want to mention that most recently, while we have had this COVID situation, we've had some wonderful programs. Black Lives Matter, we have partnered with Northwest Interfaith, Paths to Understanding, other churches and other houses of worship to produce these wonderful programs, Black Lives Matter, the rights of indigenous people, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and most recently, climate change. So once again, I want to end on this wonderful note. And by the way, Reverend Karen, I really want to thank you for streamlining the worship services, because the question I'm always asked again and again, how do you do the worship services that allows people from different religions to get together and worship in the same space? And I think you have worked meticulously over the years. And I was always at a loss. I stumbled to explain previously. But now it's been streamlined thanks to you, Michael Douglas, Sally Joe, and all the other wonderful work that we have done. Peace Camp, Project Ethiopia, the Bangladesh Clinic, the Ancestral Village Clinic in South Asia, and all the classes, the programs, the events. Thank you so much for that. So, before I end, I want to ask each one of you, my colleague, co-founder, Reverend Karen Lindquist, if there's anything you want to say, Sally Joe, anything you want to say, Michael, anything you want to say, please feel free to come up and say anything.
So I appreciated that you told a story. So I'm going to mention here a little bit that we used to, before COVID, host the World Affairs Council, a traveling leadership. And that happened many times, that the World Affairs, Council of World Affairs would bring people here from different countries. And there was several occasions that people from Afghanistan came. And I'll just tell one brief story
Please, yes.
about one of those experiences. We had several, but they had come because they had heard that we had Native American teacher here. And that was Reverend Deborah, who used to have a Sunday a month. And so they came to learn from her. And while they were here, they began to enjoy the experience of being with us, and they puzzled, these were the leaders who came, they puzzled over how we can do this. And then following the morning worship, one of the attendees asked me, through a translator, does this exist anywhere else? And because he would like to participate. And was there anything in Afghanistan? And I assured him, yes, we can create that. But he was saying, no, does it exist? I want to go there. I don't want to do it. I want to just go there. And we had the same conversation repeatedly through translator, you know how those things go, to get it clear that we would be willing to go and help him create something somewhere else. But I could tell by his expression that it would be nearly impossible for him to succeed in creating such a thing in that place. But if it already existed, he could support it. And so I'm happy that we are a model,
Yes.
or can be a model, and that the little tiny bit of incremental effect that we have resides in the memory of people who have visited us. And when COVID is complete, we may be able to return to that. An interesting thing also about that occasion, people arrived from Afghanistan full of grief. And what happened while they were here was a hope that you could see. And it was very touching.
Thank you so much, Reverend Karen, for sharing that. And you know, you also had the Interfaith Amigos here, Rabbi Ted Falcon and Don McKenzie, and we've had from the same World Affairs Council, people from Saudi Arabia, from Iraq come, and that was the first time they met a Jew, a rabbi, the first time they met a rabbi. and Rabbi Ted Falcon, he quoted to them some verses from the Quran that really spoke about the urgent need for people of different religions to get together and really to get to know the other. And the Quran, and the rabbi was saying to these Muslims from Saudi Arabia and from Iraq that the Quran says that if Allah wanted, Allah could have made all of you one single community, but of a cosmic design, He chose to create diversity so you might come to know the other. And if you have to compete, Ted went on, you compete in doing righteous deeds. And this so impressed that delegation from Iraq and Saudi Arabia. And it spoke to the beauty of really having personal relationships with one another. Whether it be a person of a different religion, different political party, different race, different culture. And we said, this is what we do at Interfaith Community Sanctuary. We really advocate coming to know the other on a human level and helping one another, irrespective of our diversity, to become just better and more complete human beings and joining hands in being of service to God's creation. Thank you. Anything else? Yeah, please.
Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity and these beautiful stories. And Karen and Jamal, both the stories you told, I can't help but be reminded of two more stories that are along the same lines, and I think this is a very important theme we're uncovering today. Jamal, you're going to have to help me remember. It must have been 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know, I'm losing track of time, but we had this our wonderful person from Indonesia who was doing some filming here. She was a graduate student at the University of Washington.
Yeah.
Do you remember her name? Do you remember her name?
Amira.
Amira? Okay, she came to our sanctuary and came to our services. She was living in the Seattle area studying, and she came to know of us and started attending our services and came to some of Jamal's classes. She was so taken by who we are here, really. And coming from Indonesia, which was a very religiously strifeful country at the time she had been there, and she was planning to go back, and she was working on an interreligious study course of some sort.
Also, but she was actually specializing in how to counter terrorism.
Oh, right. Very deep person. And she would come with tears in her eyes when she would talk to us about how moving our message was and our work was. And she would come and stand in the back, and she got permission to videotape our circular services, and she wanted so badly to take this back. And she, unlike your other friend Karen, she was willing and eager to be the one. She was scared I will tell you, she was deeply frightened. She would tell us that. But she was willing and eager to do this work, and it meant so much to me that it meant so much to her in her circumstance. And she, like myself, was just a humble student of all of this. She had no credentials in any religious sort, but she got it, right? She got it. And I pray for her often that she's having success. I haven't heard from her in a long time.
She's a professor now.
Have you heard from her? Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear she's doing well. But it reminded me of that, and that there is this tendency for this to move outward and to go to places. And there was another example besides the Indonesian one. Oh, Kuwait. So our friend Najud from Kuwait, more recently, this was just a couple of years ago, in the past year or two. And she hasn't been here in person, has she? She's only been attending online some of Jamal's classes, some of our services. And she also is doing this little project in Kuwait, which again is a hotbed of controversy when it comes to religion. And she is trying so hard to be that little kernel that you too were so many years ago here at Interfaith Community Sanctuary. Only they are not all living in a democracy where this kind of thing is ho-hum, basically, as far as our freedom to do it. And so it does give us a sense of how very important the work is, the cause of spreading the good news. I'm sorry to use that phrase because it has kind of implications, good news. But just spreading the possibility, the hope, the basic what's possible when the right people and enough people hear about it. And Jamal, it's good to hear that many people in the privacy of their own homes long for this. And they don't get interviewed by the New York Times or something, but they're there and they want something better. And so I think it's just very important that we keep that in mind. And it's these personal encounters that have helped me to do that over the year with all the World Affairs Council. Oh, I love that organization. And all the beautiful young people, all of those leaders, most of them were very young. They were training young leaders. The elder ones were training the younger ones. And the younger people were so enthusiastic. When they heard me recite the Quran, this little white girl in Seattle reciting in Arabic the Quran, they were like, whoa. I mean, and it wasn't even very good. I mean, it was just, my little faulty Arabic. But they were so impressed that I would even bother. And that I cared enough and that I knew what it meant. So I think there's a lot we can do in little ways that will turn into big ways and that will have that ripple effect that we always think is going to work. So thank you. That's very deeply inspiring and reminding me of all the good work that has been going on for so long.
Inayat Khan says that when we exercise a privilege, when we are doing something that we understand is not something that everyone is able to do, we should keep in mind the people who do not have access to that capability. And when I'm really glad that we're bringing out this sense that what we do here is easy for us, not necessarily uncomplicated for us, but there's a lot to figure out in terms of how to do things with respect, how to do things with tact and consideration, how to be broad-minded and open-hearted without outraging other people's sensibilities or pushing them too far, so that it's not uncomplicated. We have real responsibility in how we act, but we have the freedom to act, and it's really good to be aware how many people around the world are operating in a much more constricted sphere of activity, who can only long for these things in their hearts and cannot even speak them publicly. Because if we carry them in our hearts, we are doing work for them. We are helping to open up that door in the unseen world. And that's part of our work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know if Gretchen were here today, she'd be talking about Uganda and the work, the interfaith work that is going on there with Father Centurio, a very devout Catholic priest who's working within a very intense religious system of Catholicism in a country which is, well, strife-filled in many political ways. And the work that Peace Camp International has done over there, when last time Gretchen was there, a whole delegation from the capital, Kampala, is that what's the capital?
Kampala.
Kampala. They came and they spent a whole day at Peace Camp International in Uganda, where Gretchen and Father Centurio and Bernard were running the Peace Camp. And they didn't spend an hour. They spent a whole day experiencing that. And they went back and wrote this article for their national magazine about interfaith work, starting with the young people. And again, it was like, I remember Gretchen had me read it, and I'm like, wow. You know, and they were quoting Gretchen and quoting Father Centurio and this and that, and quoting the kids in the camp. And I was like, whoa, you know, and it was like, and these were high officials in the Ugandan, in their sphere. They were religious people and politicians. So we never know who we're going to influence and how that influence is going to seep in, even in those unlikely places, or places where you think it might not be accepted. And it's true, in some places, people's lives are actually in danger for doing this kind of work. And so thank you for reminding us of that, Michael, and that I know when we sent that young lady back to Indonesia, I thought, oh my God, you know, is she going to be okay? Because she was almost too enthusiastic. I'm like, just be careful, you know. But she, of course, that was silly, because she knows better than I do. But there's this not knowing that we have to be aware of, that we're really unaware of how these concepts might be taken in other places. And when you describe, Jamal, what's going on in these other countries, you know, killing and murder and burning down houses of worship, I mean, it's a little hard for us to imagine that here. I mean, it happens, but it's kind of a one-off thing when it happens here. So we're very, very...
These days.
These days, yeah, right. And that's right, it could turn any time. But we're very, very fortunate to have these opportunities like we have today to be together. So I'd like to move into spiritual discernment, if I could. So Karen had asked me to talk for a minute about spiritual discernment as a spiritual practice. This practice we have as a community, which we've had for over a decade now, a couple of decades, of choosing a large topic, a deep topic that permeates our work for the year, that becomes kind of an umbrella concept that we can get nourishment from all year. And it's like Michael was saying, it takes a lot of discernment to figure out what we can choose that will be inclusive, instructive, deep enough to be diverse, that there's no one way to approach it, that it has a depth to it that will allow us to learn from the act of discernment, rather than, it's not like we're going to teach everybody to understand St. Francis's way of living. No, we are going to explore a concept, a deep concept, together from all of our different angles that we bring to this community. And we're going to deepen our understanding of it. And here's the key in my mind now, this is just my interpretation of spiritual discernment, and I would expect that others would have different. But for me, the whole point, and this has never been stated to me, but in my heart and my mind and how I think about and why I care so deeply about our spiritual discernment every year is because it asks me and us as a community and each of us as individuals to find ways to live our spirituality. It's not about thinking about it. It's not about theorizing about it. It's not even just about learning about it. Although I love learning. I'm a teacher, I'm a student, and I get caught into the learning, I love it. But the spiritual discernment is about living it. How can we live this as human beings on Mother Earth, this planet Mother Earth? How can we live it? I'm thinking of that one of my favorite years was the year we did permaculture. Permaculture is a scientific concept from the agricultural community. It has nothing to do with spirituality, really. I mean, like on the surface, right? And I remember we talked about, can we really make this a spiritual discernment? And I remember Karen say, well, everything's spiritual if it's true, right? So we worked at it all year long, and we had so much wonderful input from our community on how to understand permaculture in a spiritual concept and how to live it. And I'm feeling like it's one we could revisit because the times now, think of that. At that point, people weren't even talking about climate change. I mean, the average citizen didn't use that word climate change or global warming. That was something only the scientists talked about, and they weren't listened to much. And I know my dad was a scientist, so he was always talking about it, but, you know, Al Gore did his thing, and then once Al Gore was gone out of the public eye, it was like there's no such thing anymore. But permaculture is interesting. It's not gone anywhere. It's still there. And we use that year to deepen our practices around permaculture in a spiritual way. And I think that we've done that every year that I've been a part of this congregation. And I'm really, to me, it helps, like Jamal, what you were saying, people don't understand how to do this. I think the presence of a spiritual discernment every year has really helped us have that. It's like a lotus flower that we're all sitting in. It's giving us the nourishment of some concept that isn't religious. It's deeper than that. It's spiritual. And how can we bring it to the surface of our human lives and being on this planet and make it something that we can live. So I'm always very excited to hear about the new spiritual discernment, and Michael's going to talk to us about that for this year, 2022.
Yes, here we are, 2022. The spiritual discernment for this year, which I'll just read off here, is encountering the infinite, meeting the Divine Mother in nature, humanity, and the cosmos, a contemplative, exploratory inquiry and discovery. I like that last subtitle because, as Sally Jo is saying, this is an exploratory process. This is these discernments that we either discover or develop they are not the dogma of a religion. They're not religious instruction. They are an inquiry.
Right.
They're saying, here's something that we want to go deeper into and learn about as a community, and there is no textbook we are going from. We are pooling our resources as a community and engaging in a group exploration. And it's always exciting. It's always an exciting process, and it's always a surprising process for me. So last year, we worked with, I've already forgotten.
The Way of Service.
The Way of Service. Yes, I forgot what the title was. We worked with The Way of Service, and we were talking about social engagement. And as I was saying last week, I think, in a way, it was an exploration of the divine masculine. We were looking at what our conventionally masculine archetypes of action and engagement and honor and courage and these kinds of things. And we looked at service, the way of service, through these qualities. What they call the names of God in Islam, really, or the energies of God in Orthodox Christianity. Things like courage and patience. And in a way, that's kind of a masculine mode of exploration. It's an analytical mode. It's saying, what are the things we need in order to accomplish this? And kind of breaking it down into those things and then going into each of those things with a focus. And that was very appropriate for the inquiry. I thought the mode of discourse matched the theme of the inquiry. We're going to do it a little differently this year because we're exploring the Divine Mother, the reality of the Divine Mother. So rather than saying we're going to break this into qualities, and explore compassion and things that are associated with a more feminine energy, we're going to concentrate on where do we meet the Divine Mother in reality? Where do we encounter this reality in our lives? And we're going to focus in 3 different places. In the first part of the year, we're going to focus on meeting the Divine Mother in nature, in our everyday experience of the world, in our bodies, in our environment, in our relationships. This is really all about encounter and relationship. What is our relationship with our bodies? What is our relationship with nature? And meeting the underlying creative energy of the universe in those places. And the second part, the middle part of the year, will be focusing on meeting the Divine Mother in humanity. So it's more of a horizontal dimension of relationship. Our relationships with each other. What do our relationships with each other add up to? What is the whole that each one of us is a part of? And how do we experience and meet the Divine Mother in that place? Mm-hmm. How is that energy reawakening and reintegrating in our culture and the way we structure our society and in our relationships? And then in the third part of the year, we're encountering the Divine Mother in the cosmos. So we're moving into a more cosmic dimension of reality and exploring in a more abstract way this same energy and reality. We start out meeting in our bodies, and then we move into a more abstract realm. And the more abstract, and I don't mean more conceptual by that. I mean moving into an exploration of the non-material reality. And we one of the main focuses of this year, I think, is this sense that there is not a difference, that there is not a split between the abstract and the embodied, that we are living in a unity, and we encounter the reality of this unity through different modes according to our our capacity as human beings, the way that we apprehend the universe in all these different modes. And so I'm very excited. We're going to be really focusing on the reality of the encounter and what is our experience.
Thank you. That sounds really exciting. I'm all ready to go. That's a beautiful explanation, and it's very, very, as you can see, it's very deep and it's very wide, and it allows for all of us to come to the trough and drink from it in a way. I don't know. That's how I think of it.
Yeah.
It's like it's this beautiful water.
I like thinking of us as cows or something.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking horses, but that's okay.
Well, my first thought was pigs, so I'm here we go. So that's us for the next year, and we'll be really happy if everyone joins us and dives into the trough with us, to mix metaphors. The cosmic trough, yeah. Cosmic slop, as Funkadelic would say. So now we're going to, yeah. Okay. Yes, I was thinking, I was thinking we were going to move on to upcoming gatherings.
Yes. Well, I wanted to call out something that both of you touched on, which I'm so happy about the spiritual depth of our work. And the other part of the story I was telling you about the World Affairs Council delegates being here is, and I mentioned that we gave them hope here. One of the things that would always happen is that some individuals would ask us to pray for them. And with tears in their eyes saying, we really are struggling. We need to be prayed for. And you tapped on about the invisible dimensions of the world. And Sally Jo talked about this, our spirituality and how deep it is. And we've always tried to move within our spiritual community, combining the spiritual and practical together, that we walk the path. We don't think the path, we don't advise the path, we walk it. And I wanted to bring that back up because that was the other half of that story that I hadn't shared with you, about how the individuals need prayers. So I'd like us to take a moment here of silence and prayer for all of those in need, and also be grateful that we have any contribution at all to the world to bring this kind of comfort, peace, and love to the world. So let's just take a moment of silence. Thank you. And I remind us that we are not only for others, we need to include ourselves in those prayers. So let's pause again in silence and allow those blessings to also infuse us. Thank you. And we also allow this moment to heal everything in the past that needs healing in our own lives, but also the world. Thank you. And I offer us now to send that blessing forward throughout all time. Thank you.
Stay, if you have announcements, you know what's coming up.
I thought you were doing really good. Okay, so we want to talk about upcoming gatherings, also announcements. There is an announcement that because of our recent COVID variants, we had rescinded our request for all of you to be present here today, and we're so happy that you were able to get online. And I also understand there was some difficulty getting into our live streaming at the beginning.
Yeah, we apologize for that. The first 20 minutes, people had trouble getting on. We fixed that for today, and I think I understand why we were having trouble, so that, God willing, won't happen again. This is the process of getting into a new technology when we stopped doing the Zoom and we started doing the live stream so that we could have people in the room more. I don't know if with the current situation we may actually be going back to the Zoom for some weeks, but that'll be a decision that we'll make later, and we'll let everyone know.
And I think we may be discussing that in our guiding council, which is one of the announcements for today also, that the guiding council will begin at 11:45 today. And yes, and the
That
guiding
is on
council will
Zoom,
be on
yes.
Zoom. Also, we had a lovely event planned for next Sunday, which was Blues Vespers and Sacred Intentions. And we canceled that because of this COVID variant and us wanting to keep one another safe. And we're following CDC guidelines. And we're delighted that you would join us in our electronic form. One day we will be together, however, our electronic.
It sounds like our
Yeah.
avatars.
Yeah, our avatars. Okay. And more upcoming gatherings. Jamal will be offering a new class soon. We don't have any flyers yet, but I'll work on that. Is there any other announcements we'd like to share?
We have the ongoing silent meditation on Thursdays that is still meeting in person. Our friend George, who's here right now, is facilitating that. At 7 o'clock, right here. Come sit in meditation, very simply, at a safe distance from each other. You are very welcome. And Sally Jo?
Course in Miracles.
And-
Katie was our guest speaker last month. They meet twice a month in person and two other times a month online.
Course in Miracles, which was our guest speaker last month, who were our guest speakers last month, they are continuing to meet here twice a month, and then they meet twice a month on Zoom on Tuesdays. And they're here live which Tuesdays?
First and third.
First and third Tuesdays. Rich?
World Religions class
And Rich Ader's World Religions class is
is this Wednesday.
coming up on Zoom this Wednesday. And where would they find the link for that?
It's on our website.
Okay.
All right. That's good news. And that'll be interesting. That'll be an interesting class, and we want all of our congregation and those who know us to learn as much of world religions as possible.
It's
So
really
we really
foundational
recommend it.
to our work. You know, in order to do this work, we don't need to be experts in world religion. But the more we know, the more respectful and intelligent we can be in what we do.
So I think we have time, if you would be interested in hearing a New Year's resolution, considered a spiritually literate New Year's resolution by Frederick and Marianne Broussard of Spirituality and Practice. Are we up for that?
Sure.
Okay. 1, I will live in the present moment. I will not obsess about the past or worry about the future. 2, I will cultivate the art of making connections. I will pay attention to how my life is intimately related to all life on the planet. 3, I will be thankful for all the blessings in my life. I will spell out my days with a grammar of gratitude. 4, I will practice hospitality in a world where too often strangers are feared, enemies are hated, and the other is shunned. I will welcome guests and alien ideas with graciousness. 5, I will seek liberty and justice for all. I will work for a free and fair world. 6, I will add to the planet's fund of goodwill by practicing little acts of kindness, brief words of encouragement, and manifold expressions of courtesy. 7, I will cultivate the skill of deep listening. I will remember that all things in the world want to be heard, as do the many voices inside me. 8, I will practice reverence for life by seeing the sacred in, with, and under all things of the world. 9, I will give up trying to hide, deny, or escape from my imperfections. I will listen to what my shadow side has to say to me. 10, I will be willing to learn from the spiritual teachers all around me, however unlikely or unlike me they may be. And we have a concluding prayer.
Oh, and I did want to note that at 11:45 we have our guiding council meeting for members. So we'll be looking forward to that, seeing you on the Zoom meeting.
Karen?
Yes. Oh,
Oh.
thank you. I'll let you do that, Sally Jo. You need a microphone, though.
Microphone. I'm trying to fit, yeah.
I'm reminded, as the treasurer of this organization and the one who's going to be giving the treasurer's report at our Gathering Council meeting for the year, we are passing the plate and we are welcoming your donations, which have been generous throughout the year. Many of you give online, many of you mail in checks from your banks on a regular basis. We have, what did we say, George, over 50 fiscal stewards? I think 53 people now give regularly to our sanctuary, which is more than it's ever been in my tenure. And it may even be more than that. That's the number that's jumping into my head. It's been increasing every year, especially during this COVID time, and we're very grateful for that, because without that, we would not be financially solvent. I can tell you that for sure. So keep it coming as much as possible. We deeply appreciate the gifts that you give. They go to maintaining this historic building, the outside, the inside, the utilities, the water damage, everything that happens. This little building, you know, there'd be people in this neighborhood who would love to take this building down and would pay a lot of money to do so. So they could build another condo here. You know that if you've been in this neighborhood lately. Nevertheless, we are an historic building. We plan to stay put and keep being stewards of this place and the community inside it and all the good work that's going on. So join us in that, and we appreciate it deeply.
Thank you, Sally Jo. So our closing prayer, let's pray together. To Come Home to Yourself by John O'Donohue. May all that is unforgiven in you be released. May your fears yield their deepest tranquilities. May all that is unlived in you blossom into a future graced with love. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, Rich, you ready?